All right, y'all, what's going on? This is your man L Jamal coming through with a special Halloween edition of Upon Further Review, and I got something special for you guys this time around, and I'm gonna share a little bit of myself with you. And today I'm gonna be showcasing my top five horror movie villains in no particular order, but I did want to get into a deep dive on each one. Their backstory, some of their best representations, their best, I guess, entries into their series, if you want to get into that as well. And, I got a honorable mention. I also got a few overrated characters I wanted to talk a little bit about, because it's that time of the season. And I wanted to touch up on this. These are some of my favorite, well, this is one of my favorite genres. And of course, like I said, these are some of my favorite characters and some of my favorite movies, not just horror wise, but overall. So I hope you guys enjoy. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet. And please be sure to check out the Never Out of Bounds podcast as well, available on Spotify, also Apple Podcasts. So again, we're going to get into it. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's do this. All right, y'all. So we're going to start off with the man, the myth, the legend, Dracula. Now, also, I wanted to include all the assorted vampire characters in this because my favorite movies, from the vampire genre, I guess you could call it, would be Interview with a Vampire and Dracula 2000. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the 1992 adaptation of the Bram Stoker novel, but again, I like the character of Dracula nonetheless and vampires in general. Now, of course, we know the rundown of this character, of course, the accounts of Jonathan Harker in the novel, and of course, vampires in general. So not too much, that we don't know here, but as far as what has always drawn me to this character in particular is, for one, just kind of what he always represented. And, there's this sense of power with this character. Now, how he does this is, with his influence, his charm, he's smooth and debonair, at least, starting with the Bela Lugosi interpretations. He has slick back hair, he moves elegantly, carries himself in a certain manner. And of course, you kind of see that in Interview with a Vampire as well. There's this kind of aristocrat type of feel to it, but, smooth nonetheless. And again, another thing that I will kind of fit in here is just how that character, evolved within itself, because, one of the original, of course, depictions of this, at least on the big screen, was Nosferatu. And in this flick, of course, they had, what will become Dracula, or the vampire, or the main, vampire archetype start off as a, down there like a monster, hideous looking, nowhere near the, like I mentioned before, the suave, sophisticated, I guess you could say modern man, looking entity that we have today. So, again, again, starting with those Lugosi movies, you see a humanization of this character. He's talking, he's, again, using his words and using his presence and his eyes. And one thing that these movies definitely did was they showcase, or Lugosi would showcase, these different looks and these different mannerisms on screen that seem to carry this otherworldly element, just within the character itself, how he would look into the camera or away from the camera, how his eyes would move. So just how they built this character up in cinema, I always liked how they do this. Again, we even go all the way to the 90s, where they kind of updated, gave him this type of 90s goth stick. And then you also have also with when they added the female vampire element, again, kind of the 90s as well. But again, it was fresher. It gave you a different, again, and also you see, like I said, the change in operation, where he was like an outright monster in Nosferatu. They become this, these agents of lust almost, and as a way to kind of tell you to watch out for your your cravings and your desires, because again, that's how they would kind of, particularly, as the character evolved into the 90s, whether it be a male vampire or a female vampire, there'd be this essence of sexuality and them using that to charm their victims and lure their victims in. So just the way that they changed the character up, how he and eventually again she, because you eventually would have women, vampire characters, how they evolved and how they came, from. And of course, there's always that historical background with all this. Again, he wasn't always, originally linked to vampirism, but again, the actions of one, your boy Vlad the Impaler, aka Vlad Dracula, was a big motivator in some way behind, some of this. Again, not all the aspects of the vampire character you see, comes from him, but again, definitely the name himself, the name Dracula became what you know as, well, it helped build the character that you know today, Dracula, of course. So again, just that kind of historical connection. Like I said before, Vlad the Impaler wasn't biting people on their necks and sucking blood out of them to that nature, but he was into torture and bloodletting and the bloodlust itself, again, which is one of the main tenets of the vampire archetype, definitely in a way starts with him, particularly with his name being Dracula. So again, a very interesting character. I think, a long, tried and tested generational character that so many generations have come across. I think just that longevity alone, and to be viable and all that, in terms of popularity, I definitely had to put Dracula here. But definitely somebody, movies who I've always been into, not necessarily in a way that's, I don't think his character ever scared me or that archetype ever frightened me per se, even as a child, but more so it was just an interesting, he's an enigmatic type of character. Again, particularly again, when they had, when they evolved into even the 90s movies, again, like I mentioned, with those, temptation elements, particularly with female vampires being the temptress and those things, just adding these different layers to this character and not turn them simply into a bat, what I'm saying? But I will say this, shouts out to Van Helsing portrayal of Dracula for actually giving him that extra form, that return to the, I guess a animalistic or monster type form. So I will give them props for that. But moving on, again, another villain here that needs no real introduction. The one, the only Ghostface from the Scream franchise. Now, I'm gonna go with the first three. I mean, that was the ones that I grew up with. I know there's, a fourth, a fifth, and I think there's a potential sixth one coming out. But I only watched the first three, and that's all I needed to watch. And just those three are some of the best in horror history, in my opinion, based off this character alone. Now, of course, this is the main antagonist to Sidney Prescott. All throughout the different, the first three flicks, and I'm not too sure about the next three, but I know in the first three movies, each of them, each of the killers had it was each a different killer, in each of these movies, and they all had their different motivations, and altogether it would give the Ghostface character itself some type of omnipresence. Now, what I mean by this is, of course, like I said, there'll be these different killers attacking for these different reasons. In the first movie, the 1996 flick, you had Billy and Stu. Now, Billy Loomis's character, he was at odds with Sidney because apparently his mom got into an affair with his dad. It forced it into his family situation, and he took it out on the mom, and eventually he wanted to take it out on Sidney's father and eventually Sidney. So he goes through this, he gets his buddy Stu to help him out, and then in movie 2 you have the main reveal, this guy named Mickey, who was one of her classmates, and he has his whole theory of he wants to do some art, I don't know, some snuff film type of situations with his murders, and he's being a copycat. He gets help from Billy Loomis's mom, who wants to get revenge for her son, and then in even the third movie where it's revealed that her brother is now after her. Again, he's been neglected by the mom, and all of this having to do again with the transgressions of the mom, and you have this character, or this killer. even if it's a different, guy, but it's just, the mask, the hooded cloak, all that. It just keeps reappearing in her life again, all over the place. And then the cool part is there's this whole meta universe with the in movie Stab franchise. So again, you have a movie depicting, within the movie, depicting the scenes, depicting the killings from the first movie. And again, so you have, this character that again is a big focal point, again, even in the meta universe, so you can't get away from it. So Ghostface shows up, and it could be anybody. Again, of course the killer is always revealed in the end, but up until that point you don't know who it could be. Again, it could be a random fan, it could be a random any person, anybody close. It could be somebody close to Sydney. You do not know until the ultimate reveal. But again, with that meta universe, you have these situations in which you're having killings all over the place. Anybody could get hit from this guy. In the first movie, he went after Sydney's friend. He went after even the school's principal, gutted him up. If you go look at the second movie, he took out Jada Pinkett Smith's character and Omar Epps randomly for no reason at the premiere of the movie, just because. Anybody get touched, and again, with the proliferation of the character, everybody's wearing a mask, everybody is wearing the merchandise. You don't know who it could be. Anybody could be the copycat. Just having all that go on, and then the mind games that this character plays. Again, it hides its ID originally with this voice box. It used it originally in the first movie. There's examples of it throughout the franchise, of course, or at least in the first three that I know of. The first one being, of course, he's messing with, Drew Barrymore's character. What's your favorite scary movie? He basically leads her on a whole, almost like like a game show, just to mess with her, knowing that he's gonna, do harm to her boyfriend and eventually her. And again, that's one of the greatest first deaths I've ever seen in a movie. We'll talk about one of in my opinion, the best first death in a horror movie in just a little bit, at least in my opinion. But again, just all these different things, that makes this character enigmatic. You can't, really, stop him. Again, he's working in tandem with somebody else. So just when you thought you stop him, here's this reveal of this other entity. No, you didn't get him. So here comes, and particularly, and this happened in the first and second movie, of course, Billy reveals that he's working with Stu, and then of course in the second movie you find out Mickey is the killer, but then here comes Loomis's mom, and you have that factor going for her. I mean, going against Sydney as well, and like I said, this character, like I said, it has this omnipresent, just everywhere. In the third movie, it didn't take no time for him to find, Sydney's address and take out all, her some of her closest friends, like Cotton, or her associates at least, Cotton and all those guys. So again, some of her friends and closest confidants, throughout the first and second movie. So it takes its turns, and I think this is again, this character, and how he looks and this makeup is, I think, again, indicative of the 90s and the character of the 90s. You can't, again, for the 90s, I think the first three were the best horror movies of that decade. I know a lot of people might want to argue with that, but I'm ready to debate with y'all on that. All right, y'all, moving on. Man, we got an interesting subject here. Now, this is let's get into it. This is Leatherface. And I'm not only going to talk about him, but I'm going to talk about his twisted family. Yes, I'm talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, of course, based off a true story, much like, the Scream movies as well, which kind of gives some of these flicks like an added little, ooh, this is really crazy. Again, when you find out there is some real life connection, or, at least there's some real life, inspiration, you're like, damn, okay. But same thing again with Leatherface, but the thing with Leatherface is he's your ultimate silent antagonist. Like when I say he's silent, I mean he's dead silent. Now, most of his noises will come from his own movement, like him, coming up to somebody, him in, pursuit of that person, the sounds of him, running and chasing. You hear the sounds of his chainsaw, and then any other of his his melee weapons making contact with somebody, like, him hitting somebody up the head and knocking them out. And then you'll hear him dragging, all those things, but you won't hear him talk. Every now and again, you might hear him make a noise or, whimper or something like that, growl or grunt, but you don't hear too much. Like I said, you just hear the weapons, you just hear him hitting somebody up the head and doing all that. You see him chopping and you hear the sounds of those things, and that's what gives this character a whole different meaning. Again, this silent and also this unhinged, you could tell because he has almost like a childlike mindset, and just coupled with that, and he just kind of has these mannerisms, but again he can just go off the handle like it's nothing. Like, again, in the beginning of the movie, people are just walking into the house. For example, the first kill with the guy, he walks straight up in there, sneaks up on him, bam, right in the head, just out of nowhere. And then you cut to him a little bit later, he's chopping him up, doing all type of stuff. Just with the way he got down and how brutal he was. Now, again, he's from a family of cannibals, so again, he learned all this behavior, but just to see it. Now, I will say this. Now, his first couple kills was easy, and again, he had a whole break in the movie to kind of have dinner with his family and put on the old lady mask to help out with dinner and set up and go through all that. But I tell you this, that man got some stamina. He literally chased that girl all the way throughout the night up until the sun came up, and she was able to miraculously find herself into that truck. That boy didn't stop. He just kept coming. I ain't no need to teleport. None of that. He just kept running. All you heard was chainsaw all fucking night. I would hate to be around that motherfucker. I would hate to be in that situation. I'm just glad the girl made it out. God damn, his whole family is fucked up. They was gonna eat these people. They was gonna eat this girl right all together. They was eating by her friends right in front of her. The family. And this also goes to show you just how, your environment, plays a factor into how these people, these characters come about. Like, for example, with Leatherface, he's influenced by, that crazy, whacked out family who, been cannibals for years too. He's been watching them, learning from them. They have a really strong influence over him. Now, because as strong as he might come off, or as brutal as he comes off to his victims, his brother will smack him around and he's over here whining and whimpering. Weird shit. But again, but the family, and it shows you that the family, in terms of importance, is a very big environment. A very influential environment for somebody. And if your family is cannibals, you definitely probably gonna be a cannibal too. Alright, y'all, we're gonna keep it moving. Up next, we have Pinhead from the Hellraiser franchise. Now, he has some of the most gruesome kills I've ever seen. I really can't get into it without fear of being demonetized. But you know what he's all about. Him and the Xenobites, they are the masters of punishment and sadomasochism. And that's where they going with this. And I will say this is probably one of the films I probably had no business, of all the films, I probably had no business watching this one as a kid, but I had Gen X parents, so there you go. Now, it's another example, just kind of like, what I mentioned with the vampires, using lust and pleasure as a tempting factor for their victims, and being, aware of that as a victim or potential victim. This is that times 10. Because again, we know about the first movie. Again, this guy, he opens up this, what he calls a treasure chest of pleasure and all these things, but it eventually falls all apart. He has to kill his friend, and he calls himself running off and having an affair with his friend's wife, but it doesn't work, and they come back and they come get him, and they get his soul, and they rip his body apart. You know what they do. I can't talk. It's just despicable. but it's for the deviant. That's what you get for being deviant. That's what it shows me. And again, for Pinhead himself as a villain, he has one of the most unique appearances I've ever seen, just with those needles coming out of his head. And the actor itself, Doug Bradley, he gives that aura of, yes, I am your judger. I am your judge. This is your judgment. I've come here to take your soul. That's the vibe he gives through thick and thin throughout all the movies. Like he has that vibe of, I will take your soul. You done fucked up. I've come and it's over. Get ready. And again, with the way that people be dying in this one, oh man, and again, just like, again, like I mentioned, this sadomasochist, this deviant energy. Again, I'm not saying, all that's, no, it opens, well, basically what the movies like this tell you is, this is how you can open a door to some of this extra shit if you kind of allow yourself to, you get too deep into it. That's all. It's like a warning. Hey, back up. Be careful. You don't know what type of energy you're giving out. Like it's almost like, in a way, like, this is the extreme, versions of the succubus and the incubus. Like, in my opinion, with kind of how, the vampire character operates, it's a bite on the neck, they suck into, like I said, that's, and they kind of use, sexuality to kind of tempt their victims, sexual energy. That's all, incubus, succubus. Think of Hellraiser on that whole 10 times level, and it's it's punishing you for what you've done, because to get the pleasure that you wanted, you had to do something evil to get it. So yeah, there's that cause and effect with this one. Now, before I get to my top guy, I wanted to get through one honorable mention, probably one of my most underrated characters, and I wanted to get through a couple overrated characters. So let's go through my overrated characters real quick, and I'm just gonna keep it easy, simple and easy. First things first, witches. I don't care for them. I don't give a fuck what people are gonna say. Hocus Pocus, The Witches, Blair Witch, all those movies suck. The Blair Witch had one of the most stupidest endings I've ever seen, and I don't really dig the found footage genre. I think it's nonsense. There's no believability in it. When I saw this, when I saw it said the film was produced and directed at this so and so studio, it took away all the level of suspension and belief for me. It killed it. As far as Hocus Pocus is concerned, everybody just like it. I know it's not a horror movie, but I just wanted to throw it out there because it's annoying and it just lives up to the witch stereotype, and they're just annoying and loud and obnoxious characters. I'm sorry, I don't really get into magic like that. Wizards are overrated to me as well, and I'll take that back. I like sorcerers, but wizards and witches, no, I don't. That's annoying. And then if it's not like like one of those goofy Halloween Town type shits, you got the more serious kind of deep ones that are just strictly about like Salem witch trials or something related to that. And no, but we're done with that. Like slavery movies, like there's so many Salem witch trial movies, and just movies about the evil witches that came from it, or wanted to punish people because they got punished. I mean, I'm tired of hearing that. It's an old trope. And then on top of that, that the witch character is just so I guess widespread. You can watch a fantasy movie and find one in it, like Wizard of Oz, and it's just like they're all over the place. Get away from me. They're annoying. They ugly looking. I don't care for witches and wizards. Like I said, they're overrated. Anyways, and also let's talk about Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees. I know a lot of y'all not gonna like this, but I'm gonna say it like this: they are the same person, pretty much. They attack with the same form of, with some form of a knife, a machete for Jason. This is a big ass, I guess, long kitchen knife for Michael Myers. He can use to pin people up with. They, run around in a dark jumpsuit, one piece. They have a white mask. I mean, Jason's is a little bit different because it's a hockey mask with holes in it, but goddamn, it's the same color, got eye holes in it. Like, come on, like, what's really different? They're both in a non-urban setting, and they both have on and off supernatural powers. And I especially don't really feel like these work for Michael because, again, as Jason died, and, I guess, we can see that he comes back through some type of evil, I guess device or spirit that gets him to come back. We see him die. We know his backstory, that he died, and whatever might have brought it back might have been his evil, vengeful spirit. coupled with his mama's evil vengeful spirit, just, bringing that energy up. Maybe you could say that. But again, he died. He was brought back. Michael, he never died. So how the hell do you get supernatural powers? And this is the thing. If you got supernatural powers, how the hell do you stay institutionalized until you an adult, until you feel like breaking out and killing somebody? And then let's be real here. You supposedly have these teleportation powers. Why did you have to drive to your victim? You could have just teleported there to begin with. But again, we had to have a movie, But that's why when he started teleporting out of nowhere, I said, what the fuck is this? He's supposed to be that raw? No, it ain't. It don't go that way. I'm just saying. And as much as I like, Friday the 13th, particularly the first one, I'll be honest with you. And I think the reveal is fine with his mom. I just think it takes a lot from it because you're expecting him to be the guy. He can't even be the guy in his own movie. It's his mama. So no, I'm not riding with him like that. They alright, but they not my favorite. And let's talk about, the underrated, the honorable mention real quick. Hannibal Lecter. And I'm going on a book and the movie hype because that boy's sick. But, in terms of the movie, of course, Anthony Hopkins made this character who he is. Sir Anthony Hopkins, let's put some respect on, of course, some iconic lines, with the Chianti and the five. We already know what's up fucking with Clarice and shit. Now, if you follow the book, you'll find out in the next, I guess you call it the excerpt or the next, installment after his first initial hookup with Clarice, he ends up macking her to the point where she eating bodies now too. He's slick with it. He's so wrong with it. He'll get you to end up doing it. Y'all have a relationship and now he got you messing with him and eating bodies. It's weird. And he has this cold ass backstory, where his family get eat up by cannibals and, that spurs him to doing it. He's cultured, highly intelligent. He thinks he's better than everybody, but he's sitting there, doing phlebotomies. Oh man, he's feeding kids body parts. That man is nasty. He's sick, but he's just what you need in this type of genre. Oh my God! Oh, he's just nasty. The scene where he let them kid eat that brain. Oh my God! I just couldn't do it. You have unusual taste. Well, shit. What you think? Oh God. Oh. Anyway, let's wrap it up. I got to talk about my main man, Freddy Krueger. Now, this is mostly, because I know, again, with what I said about Jason and Michael, I know people are going to be, saying a lot about this pick, but I will say a lot of this is based on his performance in Nightmare on Elm Street 1 as well as Nightmare 3 and then the Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I'm all aware because this is my man. I've seen all the movies, so I'm all aware about, where he then fell off and he became, whatever, just like everybody else. I know this. You ain't got to go there, but I'm just telling you that first movie, the third, and then like I said, that New Nightmare, y'all ain't fucking with it. Y'all can't fuck with him. But anyways, he had one of the very best first kills, or I guess you could say worse since it's, I guess, killing. But again, just how they break it down, let's just run through it for you guys. Now, he's messing with the first victim, Tina, and he had already been messed with her. This is how the movie starts off. She's already in the dream world. She has an initial, confrontation with him. He slices through her, her nightgown. So the second time around, of course, everybody's at the house with her. Her mama's out of town, so her friends, Nancy and, her boyfriend Glenn and then her boyfriend Rod show up to give her some moral support. So in the middle of the night, Freddy has made his rounds, peeping up on everybody, checking on everybody, coming through the walls. He decides to focus on Tina. Cold how he do it. Starts off throwing rocks at the window, throwing them. Gets her attention, gets her to come up to the window while she's walking up. Coldest shit ever. He's calling her name out. Tina! Who do you think you are? I'm like, oh no, don't even go to the window. Why do y'all go looking into the shit? Leave it alone. I just stay in the bed. Nope, I don't hear you. Nope, I don't hear nothing. But you went there. She goes to the window. He throws the rock through the window. She's all in, like, what is this? Puts her finger through there. Tina! She comes outside. And then here come Bruh coming down, got his arms all out, running against the wall and all that. He's just in his mode. And then she goes, dear God. And he goes, this is God. And he just chasing her, going around. And then they get to this part where, he has her pinned up and she's pushing his face away. And again, this is just another example of how he fucks with people. She's pushing his face away. His face comes off. And now she's freaking out because of that. And then it cuts to real life. And this is cold because you see the man in action, and the way that this scene plays out with the interaction between Rod and Tina, they screaming out for each other, and then initially he cuts through her body. You see the slashes, and can't nobody do nothing about this. Rod, he gets up, he's trying to do something. Freddie flings her body into him, knocks him down. And you see her go up to the ceiling. She reaches out to him. They screaming, Rod. Oh, Tina, she falls onto the bed, blood splattering on him. Oh, and he knows he gonna have to go down for this. He books, and it's just, oh man, you can't depict a bloodier situation than this. You know what I'm saying? And again, back to the character itself, he has so much of a personality. He plays mind games, some of the illest mind games. You know what I'm saying? Like, he messes with Nancy at the schoolhouse. She falls asleep in class because she can't get no sleep at home. He over there pretending to be Tina. Nancy! And he cheating. Now she following after him, bumping into him. Where's your hall pass? No, screw your hall pass. Then he turn around. Hey, Nancy, got the glove on. Just messing with her. Got her going down to the boiler room. Then just emoing himself. Cutting all into, then chasing all after her. Come to Freddie. Then calling her up on the phone. I'm your boyfriend. Now he's sick, man. He over here not playing. He killed off Rod, hung him up, didn't care. And then, as far as we know, Glenn didn't even have no dream. He still killed him, he ain't had no bad dream. That's what he say. I ain't had no bad dream. He still got him, pulled him down, made his blood gush. Freaking cops was in the bathroom for like 10 minutes. They commented on it, said, oh, damn, that's some crazy shit. But, that's who he is. The last few scenes of the movie, Nancy goes down to the dream world to confront him. On the way there, she picks up Glenn's bloody headphones. That's him just leaving signs, just a mess. Like, I see you, you see me. Man, this ain't, that boy ain't playing. It's a psychological killer too. Like, you can see the effect of these night terrors that they having on the people. The lack of sleep, the emotional distress. Nancy's going off on her mama. She's bugging out in school. You see Rod, he finally gets apprehended by the police. He still ain't sleeping. He's still trying to fight for his life and his dreams. And you can see the darkness of it. I've never seen somebody with the darkest of eyes like that. He had the darkest eyes I ain't ever seen of people who ain't never got no sleep. Rod's character went through it. That character Rod went through it. It's just saying, man. And then he cussed, and then what made Freddie, as weird as he is, and his other installments like 3, 4, and 5, the deaths just get even more, extravagant. I will say this about the later movies. I think the plot was much better in the first and the third, but again, the kills got extravagant and just all elaborate as the series went on. But again, the best plots had to be the first one, and of course, New Nightmare. A lot of fourth wall breaking because of what the concept was behind that movie. It was more so a look into the effects of these genres of these movies on people, and I think a scene that really draw this out for me and made this really great installment was a scene with Freddy's actor Robert Englund, he's on the phone discussing with Nancy's character Heather Langenkamp just the effect the series has had on him. And throughout the course of this conversation, you see him really in depth into this painting. And when he finishes up the conversation, just about to finish up the conversation, it's revealed that it's a whole ass painting of Freddy. So you can already see, and again, so you have these fourth wall breaks. Again, New Nightmare, it took the series, well, I wouldn't even say it was part of the main series, but it took, the character in a whole different direction. And, the concept matter, itself, but, just the actor behind the mask, Robert Englund, the writing behind him, from Wes Craven, it made this character who he is. Now, again, not all his flicks were amazing. Of course, I think the personal best for me was the first, the third, and of course the New Nightmare. But again, the character himself, just so much to offer, and one of the best out there. And honestly, watching not just this movie but all these movies, it got me through my fears. And it's almost like a little bit of crazy version of shock therapy. Maybe if I could get through these things, then I can get through everything else. If I can not be afraid of the dark as a kid, I should be fine. And it was good. I mean, it was always good coming up using cinema in this way and just having that connection with cinema. And I'm still blessed to be able to talk about it in these ways today. So I'm glad I was able to do that and share this with you guys. But with all that being said, if you liked what you saw today, please be sure to like and subscribe. I will be leaving my IG link available in the description for the episode for you guys. And if anybody hasn't told you yet, I love you. Peace out, one love, and I'll holler at you guys later.